Did you know that the very living bacteria in your gut could be responsible for your late night snacking? What if I told you that 80 to 90% of happiness hormone, literally how you feel on day-to-day basis, is produced in your gut and not your brain? And then when your gut bacteria is out of balance, it can lead to emotional eating without you even realizing it. Yeah, it's crazy. Years ago, I used to think that all that emotional eating is really just a matter of willpower and it was all in my head. And then I discovered this unsettling connection between the gut and the health and weight loss and the whole body. In this video, I'll show you how fixing your gut health changes everything from your mood to your weight and your weight loss to how you feel on day-to-day basis, so that at the end you'll understand your body better and you'll know exactly what next to do on your journey to feel better, look better, drop weight, if that's your goal. And if we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Lex Vuko. I've been in health and fitness industry for over 20 years. I started as a trainer. I owned a fitness studio. I've helped hundreds of women reach their ideal weight. I myself have competed in amateur bodybuilding, boxing, and kickboxing. I've done damage to my body, and I finally found a solution, which is what I want to share with you. Let's first start by me asking you a question. How many times have you reached out for snacks? Not because you're hungry, but because you're feeling stressed or sad or overwhelmed or simply bored? Or how many times have things hit the fan in your life and you said, F it, I'm just gonna go for ice cream and cookies and it doesn't even matter anymore? Do any of these sound familiar? Don't worry. We all deal with stress and emotions in a different way. But if the way we're dealing with stress and emotions right now doesn't serve us, aka we uncontrollably eat and crave foods, it's time to change. Emotional eating is not just a mind over matter kind of issue, as you're about to see. It is something much deeper and much more complex. This is why the whole approach of calorie in versus calorie out does not work. That may work for robots, but we're humans with complex gut health, complex emotions, complex mental health, and we need to talk about it all. And I find that not many people talk about this, yet this is one of the key components when it comes to weight loss and moodiness and getting away from depression as well. Your gut and your cravings are closely related. So when your gut health is out of balance, it sends these wrong signals to your brain, making you crave all these foods that you don't need. And you know you don't need them, yet it seems like you can't even help yourself at that moment, right? I know, been there, done that. So it's not just willpower. Don't carry all of that guilt and shame by yourself. Your gut is actively asking for those snacks. And it gets even more complicated than that, which we'll get into shortly. Let's first understand the connection between the gut and health and your body so that you know how it affects you. First, let's address serotonin and serotonin production. As I briefly mentioned earlier, 80 to 90% of all serotonin, the happiness hormone, is produced in our gut, not our brain. So when your gut health is compromised, serotonin levels decrease, and that leads to mood imbalances. It leads to depression, irritability, or you just simply feeling blue all the time. Low serotonin also triggers emotional eating because we want to get the sugar high. We want to feel better. Nobody wants to actively not feel great. And this is why people seek out comfort foods to get the sugar high, to feel better, so we don't feel as moody. The problem is obviously we get the high, but then we get the low, and at that point we don't want to feel that again, so we want more sugar to feel the high, and it becomes this vicious cycle, catch-22 basically. The next thing I want to address is gut microbiome imbalance. It's also known as dysbiosis. A poor balance in your gut bacteria increases cravings for particularly high sugar, high fat processed foods. Now, high fat meaning unhealthy fats, because healthy fats actually have the complete opposite effect on that. Certain gut bacteria craves on that sugar and processed foods, which is full of sugar. And again, when your microbiome is off balance, you are more likely to crave that sugar. which leads to more eating. All of this now while you're thinking negative things because your serotonin is low and you're not feeling so great. And now you're connecting these negative emotions to processed foods, which then give you a high and gives you that false feeling of feeling better, false feeling of happiness, which we already discussed. On top of that, what you may not know is that sugar actually really does hit the same brain part that cocaine and other drugs do. So you're quite literally getting the sugar high. And just like anyone else who's addicted to any other substance will say, you never get quite that first high, so you always keep chasing it. This is why we can eat more and more and more processed foods, especially the lower that our mood is, because we're chasing that good feeling. Do you see how quickly this gets messy with having low serotonin and therefore feeling kind of blue, with gut becoming addicted to this processed foods and craving it, and then you connecting the negative emotions to feeling the sugar high, which again gives you that false sense of hope, false sense of I feel good right now. But then when you feel low, you go up and you go down, and yeah. This is why oftentimes we battle with weight issues when we have not addressed our mental and emotional well-being, and we have, in the process, damaged our gut health. But this is also why I want you to understand it's not just a matter of willpower. It's not just a matter of you stopping cold turkey. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But do you see how it's not as simple as calories in versus calories out? I want you to really think about how much guilt and shame you're carrying if you're carrying extra weight. That extra weight really is your guilt and shame, I'll be honest with you. And this is what the diet culture has made you to think, because in a diet culture, you're supposed to follow a diet perfectly. And when you can't, because your gut is sending these crazy signals of cravings and you just can't take it anymore, and at some point you give in, you're the one blaming yourself because you didn't do it perfectly. Honey, it's not you. Yes, we're about to take some responsibility. Yes, we're about to learn how to get away from this. But yes, we need to get away from the guilt and shame and self-judgment that we put on ourselves because we just couldn't resist. We can talk about pretty much anything when it comes to weight, calories, mental, emotional well-being, or gut health if we don't talk about stress and what it has to do with gut-brain axis. Now, our gut is connected to our brain via a vagus nerve. This is called the gut-brain axis. Because stress and anxiety directly affect our health, that sends the signals to the brain to trigger emotional eating behaviors. This is why when you're stressed, the gut often sends the signals of hunger and cravings, especially for that good, comfort, carby, starchy food. And on top of that, the story never ends. When you're stressed, your gut becomes more inflamed, which disrupts your digestion and hormonal balance, which further triggers emotional eating because once again, you're already not feeling great. This is also why a lot of times when people are stressed, they're having digestive issues. Your gut is generally the first to show you something's up, something needs to change. But what do? We kind of ignore it. We still eat that stuff we shouldn't eat because again, it became this almost unbearable catch-22. And again, once you add these emotions of guilt and shame, it never ends. Because when we feel out of control when it comes to our food choices, we activate the reward center in our brain, meaning we have a need to actually reward ourselves to feel better. This is why you go for that one cookie, you swear, you're just like, I'm just gonna have that one cookie. One, that's it. I'm making a deal with myself. But the moment you're tasting it, the feelings of guilt and shame start coming up. You activate the reward center in your brain. You have to go for the second cookie to reward yourself, which makes you feel more guilt and shame, which makes you go for the third cookie, and so on and so on. And you only stop when the bag is empty. This is also why you don't want to be close to comfort food ever. And throughout, again, this whole behavior, we're setting up habits. Habits are very hard to break, especially when they tell you to break them cold turkey, because once again, you're going to feel deprived. Your gut is going to feel deprived. It's going to require for you to get the drug. This is why with my clients, we address not only gut health, but mental and emotional well-being, as well as inner beliefs that led us to all of this. This is why these changes need to be gradual, not instant. Diet culture is pushing these instant changes on us, and we all know how well that works. You need to do things gradually, one day at a time, 1 week at a time. And by the way, if you are looking to find out more about my membership and what it entails, I'll leave the link in the description. Check it out and see if it's the right choice for you. Next, we have to address inflammation. Poor gut health leads to chronic gut inflammation. This severely interferes, for example, with hormonal balance, with cortisol production, with, again, serotonin. And also, when there is inflammation present, our hunger hormones, such as ghrelin and leptin, get completely dysregulated, which means you don't get the feeling of feeling satiated when you're eating the right amount of food. And again, why you don't just go for that one cookie. Because again, on top of this cycle that we talked about, you also don't feel satiated. This is why I always joke around and say, well, the real food doesn't do that to us. You don't eat one mango and you go, I have to have 9 more mangoes or I'm going to go nuts. But you have that one cookie and you have to finish the bag. That's the difference between processed and non-processed foods. Because when you eat a mango, you're changing your gut health bacteria. You're getting ghrelin and leptin. You're knowing when you're feeling satiated and your belly feels full. And through all of this, I want you to realize that these food companies, this is why they're putting sugar in everything. You cannot grab any snack these days without finding some form of sugar, whether it be sugar, maltodextrin, dextrose, erythritol, or any of the other 200 names for sugar that they have. And so when you eat this food, it makes you, for one, addicted to sugar. 2, make your gut bacteria crave more sugar. 3, not feeling satiated or full anytime soon after you start eating processed foods. And 4, reach out for these foods when you're not feeling so great, which you're not feeling great because you have sugar in your system and your gut health bacteria is messed up. See how complicated that is? I know. Now, as if that's not enough, there is something called leaky gut. Leaky gut syndrome is basically when the inner lining of your digestive tract becomes inflamed and more permeable, which allows toxins and undigested food particles to enter our bloodstream, which again causes inflammation throughout the whole body. And just yuck. Now, this itself leads to mood swings, fatigue, irritability, depression, and the list goes on, basically. All of these things which basically lead you to emotional eating so that you can soothe yourself. What I'm hoping you get from all of this is that there is a very serious connection between your gut health and your brain and your mood and your whole body. If you're trying to lose weight but you can't, it may be because of your gut bacteria. As you see, weight loss goes way beyond just calories and beyond a simple diet. This is why it's important for you to start being aware of how you're feeling at times when you're going toward those snacks or the fridge, because that will help you understand what kind of habits you have, what kind of cues or triggers send you toward the kitchen. Before we get to the solution on how to change these things once and for all, why don't you leave me a comment below and let me know what is your biggest challenge when it comes to emotional eating. Okay, let's get into the solution to this madness, shall we? So what can you do? You fix the root cause. By healing your gut health, you will start to regain control over your cravings and emotional eating. It's not about starving yourself or avoiding your favorite foods forever. That's what diet culture teaches you. It's about balancing your gut so that it sends the right signals to your brain. It's also about finding healthier versions of your comfort food, because using different ingredients to create the same yummy food will send different signals to your brain. You may want to test your gut health. There is a company that I send all my clients to that tests not just your gut health, but your heart health, your metabolism, your cognitive function, and much more. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave the link in the description, and if you use my code, you get 25% off. You just got to know what your starting point is, because how can you create a roadmap to where you want to go if you don't know where you're starting? And let me use this moment to remind you, the road from point A to B is never a straight line. Think of it as a stock market. You're going to have to go up and down, but you will eventually get to B. And then over time, you will notice how differently you feel. You can choose to retest your body and see how things have changed on the inside. Now imagine being able to recognize when you're actually truly hungry and just saying, I guess I could eat now, rather than feeling hangry or having crazy cravings that you can't resist due to emotions or stress. Imagine recognizing your emotions, saying, I guess I feel rejected right now, or I feel very lonely, or I feel some kind of way, but I can't even pinpoint it yet. But I'm not going to go to comfort food because I'm noticing that that's not healthy for me. That is possible when you fix your gut health. And you may not even believe that right now. I remember at some point in my life when I was still struggling with weight, I didn't even think that was possible. I thought I will always have to resist some food, and that's simply not the case. At the end of the day, emotional eating and cravings are much more complex subject than just having the willpower not to eat something. It's about recognizing that your gut is a part of your whole system and that your gut really strongly communicates with your brain, which then further sends the signal to say, hey, it's time to stop eating. Hey, we could eat now. Hey, we're not going to eat that right now. And you want to get to a point where you feel less guilt and shame, no self-judgment, and that you can truly be in control of your body, of your weight, and your health. There's a lot to do with our subconscious mind and how we process our emotions, how we think and feel. And if you are someone who wants to dive more into the psychology of weight loss, I have a whole video dedicated to that. Click here and watch now.